Hello all, welcome back to Answer Writing Initiative at 9 p.m. I'm Guna Mathivanan from Offices IAS Academy. Friends, if you're watching this video series for the first time, then please watch my first video in this Answer Writing playlist to know how to participate in this initiative. It is open to all. Right, so what was the question which I gave in the last video? There's a global trend in advanced economies towards increase in the interest rates. How do rising interest rates in developed countries affect the emerging and developing economies? So, how to approach this question? So, you explain this global trend. So, during COVID, we saw an increased fiscal stimulus package carried out by almost all the country, including developed countries, and that fiscal stimulus resulted in more money supply, and that was resulting in high inflation in developed countries. Like America is witnessing, UK is witnessing 30-year high inflation. So, to counter the inflation, the developed countries increased the policy rates, their interest rates. So, which is affecting the emerging economies in the following ways. Introduction, go to the following ways. When you go for following ways, don't bring random points, you have to properly explain how. See, when USA is going to raise the interest rate, then the interest rate differential will not be favorable for India. I have made a video on this topic. Please watch that video if you have not watched in the hit list series. Okay. So the interest rate differential will become unfavorable. Now, when America is raising the interest rates, then the interest rate differential between America and India gets affected, which becomes unfavorable for India, and that will result in a reduced capital inflow and it will trigger increased capital outflow. Now, because of this reduced inflow and increased outflow, what will happen? The rupee value will be affected. When rupee value is getting affected, your imports will become costlier. Right? So, like this, you have to establish the links. So, when the interest rate is increased, capital inflow is reduced, capital outflow is increased. This, in consequence, will decrease my rupee value. When the rupee value is decreased, my imports becomes costlier. When my imports become costlier, my forex will be affected. Right? When my forex is getting affected, that can even lead to balance of payment crisis in the emerging economies. Likewise, when this rupee is getting depreciated, what happens? When the rupee is getting depreciated and also when the interest rate is very high in the abroad, the borrowing cost will be high. I want to borrow from American bank. Interest rate is very high. My borrowing cost will be very high. My borrowing cost increases, so my debt servicing, my interest payments is becoming costlier. Right? So every point should have a flow linkage. So here I have given about the interest rate differential. Because of that, the capital flow outflow will be high. Now, because of that, the currency will depreciate. Because of that, the imports becomes expensive, and also the rising interest rate is going to lead to higher borrowing cost from abroad. That will make paying back becomes more expensive. So now to counter these situations, RBI, the Central Bank of Emerging Economies, they can increase their interest rates to counter. America is raising the interest rate, UK is raising the interest rate, developed economies are raising the interest rate. To avoid these consequences, then RBI, the Central Bank of Emerging Economies, they can also raise the interest rate. Let's say when RBI is to counter this, if RBI is raising the interest rate, the money supply within the economy will be affected, the domestic consumption will be affected. That is going to affect our investment, production, growth, employment, as well as the nation's income as well. So these are the consequences. So how we can conclude? So what we should do? So government should diversify the trade partners as well as investment partners. Should not depend only on America or UK or certain developed countries. So India should, or emerging economies, because the question is about the emerging economies in general. So the emerging economies should diversify the trade and investment partner, and also parallelly should focus on achieving self-reliance, right? Because these external shocks are beyond our control, so we have to focus on Atmanirbhar. So diversify the investment trade partners and also focus on Atmanirbhar. That should be your conclusion. Very simple conclusion I'm giving it. But while writing the answers, please ensure there is a flow. Don't give random points. Right? So, Shankara Madhavan, there is a flow in your answer. There is a proper flow. You have given a proper introduction. So, interest rate differential. So, that will be affecting the investment outflow of dollars, right? So, that is going to affect the forex reserve. That will lead to balance of payment crisis. So, that is going to reduce the capital availability, will affect the economy. That's a flow. Conclusion is fine. Conclusion is fine. But look at the next paper. Kavya, the flow is slightly missing in your answer. Introduction is fine. So you are saying the outflow of foreign investments, the differential interest rate is going to create outflow. Great. Right. The central bank of emerging economy would be forced to raise their interest rate to prevent the outflow. That is also fine. Suddenly you are coming up with a point. Higher domestic borrowing cost lead to reduction in the domestic investments. The point is correct, but try to link it. Try to link it or make it a separate point and explain how. Explain how. If there is a flow between each point, reading becomes easier. There is a coherence. But when you are bringing some points which is not directly or connected, or if you are not able to connect directly, then that will result in disruption in the flow. Okay. So depreciation of domestic currency results in costlier imports, but link how depreciation happens. Okay, that just give a link. The remaining points are fine. Your way forward is too much, right? You are exceeding the word limit. This much space cannot be allocated for way forward. Okay, and also you are saying that diversifying, I mean, reduce the dependence on one currency. Don't say one currency, say diversify the partners. Okay, depending on one currency, I'm able to understand what you're trying to convey, but you rewrite us diversifying the trade partners, investment partners. Okay, Om Sneha, introduction is fine. Impacts capital formation, increases capital outflows to prevent that domestic interest hikes. Right? Now you connect depreciation of domestic currency will lead to increased import cost is fine. You explain, you connect it because of the capital outflow, because of the capital reduced capital inflow, increased capital outflow, the rupee will be affected, rupee will depreciate. That link is important, right? Higher imports, yes. Domestic inflation, such inflation will further trigger, yes. Depreciation of domestic currency will also increase the debt servicing cost. This point you could have brought here. This point you could have brought here. And for depreciation, some link point. So when you read, when there is a coherence, you will be getting good marks, right? So promoting domestic consumption, adopting import. I mean, see, don't say import substitution. You can say Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar would be better, right? Through these measures, economy can be resilient towards negative external influences. That is fine. Okay. Flow is what is more important. Everyone, Kavya as well as Om Sneha, you have given the right points. Slightly explain it further. Try to have a coherence. Then your answer will look more correct. So, what is the answer for the question for today? What do you understand by the term financial inclusion? Discuss the missing gaps in achieving universal financial inclusion in India. Right? The question is about financial inclusion. Right? So, I hope the initiative is adding value to your preparation. I will see you in next video. Till then, bye. Take care.